All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining our session today on Rescuing a Module, How We Revived an Abandoned Project. We're really excited to be here today and really honored that the Drupal community has selected us to speak. We're excited to share our experiences with rescuing a module and getting active in the community. Before we get started today, we have a couple questions in the polls tab if you wouldn't mind answering them. We have set aside some time at the end of our presentation for discussion, but feel free to post any questions to the Q&A tab as we go along, and we'll look through and answer them at the end. In our session today, we're going to cover identifying when projects could benefit from your involvement, reviving interest in a stagnant project, leveraging the community, developing a plan for moving the project forward, and we'll discuss different opportunities for contribution. Hopefully we'll encourage you to find your own module like TB Mega Menu and develop your own contribution story. I'm Irene Dobbs and my pronouns are she, her. My co-presenter today is Wade Stewart. He's a lead developer at Bounteous and has been there for almost 5 years and been a Drupaler for over 10. He started with Bounteous at our Chicago office and is now working remotely out of the Denver area. For most of his career, he's been a front-end developer, but over the past few years, he has been doing more back-end full-stack work. He is TB Mega Menu's maintainer, and TB is his first major contribution back to the Drupal community. You can find him on Twitter, Drupal.org, and Drupal Slack under the handle The Modular Lab.
Hi, I'm Wade Stewart. My pronouns are he, him, his. My co-presenter today is Irene Dobbs. She's been working as a Drupal front-end developer at Bounteous for 1.5 years. She also started at our Chicago office and, funny enough, is about to move to our Denver office here fairly shortly. She's also a co-maintainer on TB and has been responsible for the amazing documentation on the module. You can find her on Twitter at The Reflective Quail and Drupal.org under the handle Irene_Dobbs. Now that we've introduced ourselves, we'd like to say a few words about the company that we're representing today. As we mentioned, we both work for Bounteous, which is a technology-driven, full-service digital consultancy, and Drupal is one of the big things that we do there. We get to work with some really smart and talented people in both our Drupal practice and our company as a whole. We're often hiring, so if you're looking to do some really cool things or looking for a team to do some great work for your company, please reach out. Bounteous is a gold sponsor here at DrupalCon North America, and we have a virtual booth. And as you may already know, or will at least find out shortly, Bounteous is passionate about Drupal and contributing to the Drupal community. We also love rescues, whether it be rescuing modules or rescuing animals. We want to give back to both of these causes, and you can help us. For every attendee that visits our booth and chats with us, we'll donate $5 to regional animal rescues that are local to our Bounteous collaboration centers, as well as $5 to the Drupal Association to continue support for open source technology. Both Irene and myself will actually be at the Bounteous booth after this session. Like we mentioned, we'll answer some questions at the end of this, but we'll also be available at the booth if anybody wants to move over there afterwards. So, for those that are maybe not familiar with TB, or as we like to call it, the Better Mega Menu, it's a module that allows you to build rich and complex mega menus where each parent dropdown can have a unique and custom layout. You can create separate menu items into columns and control how each child level renders, add custom classes at various levels, and render blocks within dropdowns. It accomplishes all this through an easy-to-use admin UI. It has full accessibility features on the front end and is compatible with D7, 8, and 9. We also have thorough documentation covering D7, 8, and 9. TB was started in 2013. We didn't discover it until 2017 as an unsupported project and eventually took over as maintainers last summer. Ultimately, our experiences from 2017 to now made us feel like this was a story that we could share, particularly because of how important open source and contribution is to this wonderful community.
So what is open source and why is contribution important? Well, open source is built on principles like collaboration and community. And in Drupal's case, means that anyone can use and share the code base. Contribution is all about helping something to advance. In our case, helping Drupal. A common way we all help Drupal advance is by contributing new modules or themes, helping with thriving ones, or even in other non-code related ways like documentation. I imagine that at least some of you listening have leveraged a community module and probably just relied on someone else stepping in and taking ownership. But this is part of why we have open source, to benefit from the community's work. However, contribution helps you get to the next level of open source participation, and it has the plus of helping Drupal move forward. It is also a great way to collaborate with others in the Drupal community, learn something new, advance a skill, and even bring your own ideas to life. All of this helps to pay back and advance Drupal. Contribution is vital to us keeping the system alive. Given that Drupal has over 45,000 modules available, contributions have been critical to keeping this open source community advancing. So, what happens when a module used by over 30,000 websites stops being supported? You probably panic, or at least get a little bit frustrated with the module's lack of movement, right? You're relying on that module for your project, and now it's not being supported, and that can be a scary feeling, and this is also a common thing in open source. So, now you need to take a deep breath and help to bring that module back to life. And that's what we did for the TB Mega Menu module. We identified a 4-step process that takes you from panic to contribution to bettering Drupal. The 4 steps we use are to identify, revive, leverage the community, and to continue moving forward. So to help explain what these steps look like, we'll go into further details and give some examples of how we use these steps to bring TB back to life.
So how do you identify a module to rescue? Well, there are a lot of ways. I mean, Drupal.org has resources to help you look for modules that have requested new owners, maintainers, etc. But what about the unsupported ones that are just sort of fading away? That's a bit harder, right? For one, you can start with your own module toolbox. We all have them, whether we realize it or not. There's that group of contrib modules that we nearly always include on a project. They are essential to us. And occasionally with contrib modules, for one reason or another, we may encounter issues that have us turn to the project's issue queue. And this can be a big clue as to whether maybe a module needs help or not. Does it mention on the project page that it's looking for help? Are there a lot of issues in the queue, particularly ones that seem to go unnoticed or maybe stuck and reviewed and tested by the community status? Are there enhancements you'd like to make if you could, or notice bugs, and possibly even fix them already? Is the module's community still active in any way? So as I mentioned, we discovered TB. We discovered it by accident in 2017 while doing an audit for a prospective client. We felt this module had some potential, but we didn't really have a use for it right away. But as a lot of us do when we find new and interesting modules, we put it in our back pocket for possible usage in the future. So then fast forward a year later, we received a request from one of our clients, Wilson Sporting Goods, to rebuild their mega menu. And based on what they were looking for, we remembered TB and immediately realized it would be a nearly perfect fit. So first and foremost, though, it wasn't accessible. And there were a few things that we needed to address on our end to make it work, mostly theme-wise. We put a lot of time and effort into this and gave Wilson a pretty amazing menu that is still in place today. But at this point, I want to take a little bit of a tangent here. This is a point where I feel personally a little guilty. We did a lot of custom work on TB for Wilson and even other projects after that, but it wasn't something that I immediately thought of as a way to contribute back. So fast forward a year, I'm working with Joseph Purcell. Some of you here may or may not know him. I was working with Joe on a project and I was writing patches for TB to address some accessibility and some other issues, even with additional modules unrelated to TB. The thing is, I was writing these patches for our local repo. I was not writing these to contribute back to Drupal. So he brought this to my attention that like, hey, these things should be contributed back to the community. He highly encouraged me to take this approach whenever possible. And that's something I really appreciate him for. So as we use this module more and more over the past 4 years or so, We were in more of a mindset to fix and enhance it, but noticed that D8 was still only in development and D7 only had a release candidate. It was 5 years old. There were even several issues that had been reviewed and tested by the community, in addition to our own that we had posted, that just were not being moved forward. They were just stuck in that kind of purgatory status that if you're familiar with any contributions, you know very well. We finally decided that due to how important this module was to us, though, that we wanted to do something about it. So that brings us to trying to revive a project. So we've identified our module that we'd like to rescue, but how do you revive it? To me, identifying the module was the easy part. Doing something about it, that's tougher. It can be overwhelming for sure. It certainly was for me before I got into this, but it doesn't have to be. So one of the first steps, I think, is to determine your role in a project. Are you just looking to help out, maybe be more than a casual contributor in the issue queue? What about having a bigger say in the project's direction, having more control over what gets committed, etc.? Are you looking to take the lead on the module? Once you determine your role, and maybe sometimes these choices will be limited, say if a module owner is just looking for a little bit of help, or if a module has been completely abandoned. But I guess in the context of our talk today, we are looking at this more from the perspective of taking over as an owner or maintainer. So next, you should outline a plan. Now, this doesn't need to contain every finite detail of what you want to do, but it should at least be a loose roadmap for once someone hands you the keys, you know what you're going to do. And we believe that these things in place will not only help you convince others to let you take over, but will also eventually encourage users to come back to the module. So now we've identified our module, we've determined a role, developed a plan. What now? Well, now you begin the journey into module ownership. Before you do anything, you have to follow Drupal's process for taking over an unsupported or abandoned project. This includes reaching out to the owners and maintainers through an issue queue ticket. This is where you can make your case as to why you should take over. It certainly helps if you've already been active in the module's issue queue or at least the Drupal community in general. If the maintainers are responsive but maybe decline to make you an owner or maintainer, don't be hurt or offended. But if they are not responsive after a couple of weeks, you can move your issue over to the ownership issue queue. But just be aware that if your module is currently covered under Drupal's security advisory policy, you will need to have a vetted role before you can become an owner, though this won't necessarily prevent you from obtaining maintainer or co-maintainer status. So once you get access, now the fun begins. Remember that roadmap that we mentioned just a moment ago? Well, now it's time to put it in action. It's time to determine the priorities and to understand what kind of commitment you're able to make to the module. Are you going to be on your own, or can you recruit some help? For TB in particular, we were really lucky that we had the support of our company as well as interest from our colleagues to help out. But I think you can also lean on the community as well. But that might take a little bit of time and work on your part in order to revive that interest from the community, and probably won't happen right away. But it all depends, of course, on how long the module has been inactive. So as I've mentioned earlier, we took over TB in July of 2020. The D7 version had been stagnant since 2015. D8 had not been updated since 2017 and was only a dev version at the time. So as you can imagine, there was a lot of work ahead for us. We wanted to focus more of our time and energy to put towards getting a stable release for D8.9, but also while not neglecting the fact that 85% of our module's user base was still using D7. So we wanted to focus on a few things out of the gate here. So we wanted to add accessibility for both D7 and 8. We wanted to fix any bugs, particularly critical ones for 7 and 8. And finally, get a beta release for D8 as well as making it D9 compatible. That felt like the most important and highest priorities for us. And once that was done, we wanted to pursue a stable release of TB that's covered under Drupal's security advisory policy. But then, something really special started to happen while we were doing all this. The community returned.
And this is the cool part, leveraging the Drupal and TB mega menu community. To start, you need to show that the module is active again. So one of the first things we did was update TB's homepage to let people know there were new maintainers and that we were working on the module. As we continued working, testing, reviewing, committing patches, updating the module to be more accessible, and cleaning up the issue queue overall, it showed the community that we really were active with TB again. This action is great for the community that already exists around your module because it helps restore faith, and that helps the existing community be reassured they can continue using it. This can also bring interest to potential new users. Another thing we did to help the TB community was update our documentation. We provided updated versions for D7, 8, and 9. This allows for a simple and concise look at our documentation to see if the module will fit your needs, and it helps new users get up and running more efficiently. As we worked on these enhancements, it showed the community we were working on advancing the module. Then the community let us know they were still there and interested in using TB. Between August 2020 and March 2021, the D8 and 9 usage went from 1,900 to 2,700 users. As we continued working, the community started to contribute and collaborate with us. As a result, more issues were logged and new requests for support features were added. Everybody who is reporting an issue or making a request is helping us to advance our module and also contributing back to Drupal, therefore helping Drupal to advance. It has been amazing watching the community get involved with TB Mega Menu again. And as we said before, open source is built on collaboration and community. And as we're collaborating internally and bringing our plan to action to bring back life to TB, we are now seeing the community collaborate with us to help advance TB even more. This is what open source and contribution is all about and why it is so important to something like Drupal. Being a part of contributing to the Drupal community and advancing the community forward has been an incredible experience, and we're just getting started with TB. And now we need to think about TB or the project long term, and that brings us to our final step. Continuing to move the project forward. So how do you continue to move forward? Since TB Mega Menu is nobody's main priority and taking over ownership of a project may never be yours, it's important to come up with some ways to keep yourself and others accountable to continue advancing the project. We established weekly meetings where we would review new issue queue items, prioritize the new items as well as existing ones, and give an update on what we had accomplished and we're going to tackle next. We also used a Jira board to help us organize our prioritization and what we were all working on or looking to accomplish. We also did a lot of internal promoting on the new things we'd add to TB, like updated accessibility and opportunities we have on TB for others to get involved in contributing. We tried to make contributing to TB as accessible as possible to our team by dedicating local environments to the D7, 8, and 9 version of the module and providing different ways those could contribute to TB other than just writing code, like adding the new documentation or reviewing and testing patches. Our goal was to bring as much excitement as we have for TB to our Drupal team and get others excited about contributing back to the Drupal community. Moving forward is the last piece to our 4-step process. We started with talking about how you can identify a project and do something about it, ways to revive a stagnant project, how to leverage the community that exists around your project, and some ideas to keep the momentum going and to keep the project moving forward. Our journey with TB didn't involve just Wade and I. Wade's now going to tell you a bit more about the team behind the journey.
Yeah, as we begin to wrap up today, I wanted to just quickly share some appreciation for those who've been a huge part of TB's successful revival. First up is Michael Gerges. He's a senior front-end developer at Bounteous. I've worked with Michael at a previous company back in 2015 and spent years trying to recruit him to join Bounteous. Finally got him to a couple years ago, I think, at this point. He's an incredibly smart and talented person. I've already gotten to work with him directly on a couple of projects, and he has helped a lot with bug fixes for TB, helped us organize for applying for security advisory policy coverage, done tons of testing, and has some really great ideas for our future 2X branch. Next is Andrew Olson. Andy's actually my career coach at Bounteous, and he's been a big driver in getting me not only to contribute, but also helped push me towards applying for ownership for TB. I've gotten to work with Andy on several projects, including Wilson.com, where we first used TB Mega Menu at Bounteous. And I think both of us have been pretty big drivers of its usage just in general at our company. And then Andy's also made some great contributions to the module as well, particularly helped keeping us on track and organized. We also want to thank our company for not only providing us the time and ability for us to contribute, but also for encouraging contributions. It really means a lot to us that we get to do this. And finally, we want to thank another member of Bounteous who oddly wished to remain anonymous, but he's been just a massive help in both cleaning up the D7 version and has been just instrumental in getting us to be able to apply for the security advisory policy coverage. And then finally, last but not least, we want to thank the Drupal community. We want to thank the community as a whole, and just simply by making updates to our module and replying to items in the issue queue. This has organically re-sparked interest in our module, and it's been fantastic. I mean, nobody wants to see problems come up with their module, but just the fact that people are there and reporting it and just there, it's wonderful, and we really appreciate it. So if you'd like to learn more about TB Mega Menu, whether it's to consider using it or to help out with contributions, check out our Drupal.org project page. Like I mentioned, we're currently in progress of trying to obtain security advisory policy coverage. In fact, we are nearly there. We are also about to start work on a new whole 2x branch for D8 and 9, which is going to add lots of improvements and new features. We're currently only really supporting bug fixes on D7. However, if the community would like to see D7 improvements before end of life, we strongly encourage you to visit our issue queue. While we're not actively working on any new features for D7, we'd be really thrilled to include any community-driven ones. And then also, please check out the fantastic blog written by Michael Gerges. It goes a little more in depth on all what we did for reviving this module. And it's just a great companion piece to this presentation. And just also a little reminder, as we mentioned at the beginning of this presentation, for our company, for any attendee that visits our virtual booth and chats with us, we're going to donate $5 to regional animal rescues, as well as $5 to the Drupal Association to continue support for open source technology. You can just head to the expo area of Hopin, search for Bounteous, and both Irene and myself will be at the booth after the session, as well as some others from Bounteous. So if you want to chat with us or someone else, we'd love to hear from you. And as a reminder, we're still going to be doing questions at the end of this session, and then we can continue questions at the booth later on.
So I hope we've inspired you to give back. If you know a module or theme you'd be interested in contributing to, go to the issue queue and see where you can help out. If you're looking for ideas on where to begin, we have some links here that give more details into the steps for applying for ownership of an abandoned project, ways you can contribute to Drupal's core, a guide to help those who are new to contribution, and a link for all the different ways you can contribute back to Drupal without having to write any code. We also have a link at the top here for projects that are looking for new maintainers, so you can find your own TB Mega Menu story. We know it seems daunting, but we did it and it was really rewarding. We know you can do it too. If you're excited about contributing now and want to get started right away, you can also contribute right here at DrupalCon. Today through Friday, starting at 2 p.m. Central, there are mentored contribution sessions. The contribution sessions are located on the contribution platform. Each day focuses on an initiative. Today's is decoupled menus, Wednesdays is easy out of the box, Thursday is automated updates, and Friday is Drupal 10 readiness. Participation in an initiative is optional, so feel free to reach out to the contribution mentors if you have any questions on what the best fit for you may be. Thank you for attending our session, Rescuing a Module, How We Revived an Abandoned Project. We hope you enjoyed listening to our story and that we've inspired you to start your own contribution journey. Whether it be giving back to a module in the form of fixes or enhancements, or taking ownership in order to revive a module, we're sure you'll find it as rewarding as we do. Thanks again, and we'll go ahead and start looking through the questions.
Yeah, and while we do that, I just closed up the poll. So yeah, this is great. So it looks like, yeah, like 53% of you have contributed 4. So that's awesome. I see that 26% said no, but they would like to. So I hope one way or another this session has inspired you to try to do something. Because like we mentioned before, it can be really daunting and overwhelming. But once we kind of jumped in and did it, we found that it wasn't that anymore, and it was like really rewarding and really fun. So yeah, definitely not anything to be afraid of. Okay, so yeah, I guess I see the first question was clarify what we mean by TB. So technically, TB means 2 things. Before we took over TB, it was actually named TB because it was an organization called the Theme Brain. So it was named basically after their company. So it was the Theme Brain Mega Menu. Whenever we took over, I mean, not to be in any way negative or like erase, the previous maintainers, we kind of wanted to make it a little bit more general. I mean, we took over this as a company, so we wanted to kind of unbrand it in that way a little bit. So Michael Gerges, who I mentioned earlier, I think actually thought of, or maybe it was someone else from our company, I can't remember who, but anyway, we thought like, oh, the better mega menu like kind of makes more sense now. So that's basically what that means. So yeah, let's see. What are some good business arguments for devoting resources to a contrib module? Looking for the enlightened self-interest. I don't know how to answer that necessarily. Yeah, I guess it's just, as an organization, I mean, we have a whole practice that's devoted to Drupal. So with that in mind, I mean, this is part of our livelihood. So we want to make sure to support, the open source platform that we're making money off of, essentially. Like any organization that's using Drupal is making money off of an open source platform. So I think it just makes sense that, with us using it, that we make sure to give back. And that's just really important. And I guess, as far as what module, I think, we chose this module just because we've used it a lot in our organization. I want to say, 5, 6, 7 sites at the very least. Anybody that's needed a fairly complex and custom, where every single menu drop-down column needs to act completely different from the next, that this module has been essential to that. So I think that's maybe, yeah, from a business argument, like it makes sense, And also, we've just done a lot of our own work on the module. So again, it just kind of makes sense to give back. All right. What strategies are implemented for converting Drupal 7 module to Drupal 8? That's a good question. So I will say that when we took over this module, we already had, there was already a 7 and 8 version. So the previous maintainers had already ported it over. That's something like I've been involved with migrations before, updating a site from 7 to 8. But as far as, moving a module over, I'm not sure. That's a good question. I feel like, there's probably got to be some pretty good documentation on Drupal.org for basically porting a module from one version to the next. All right, so have you been able to take advantage of tools like Upgrade Status, Drupal Rector to set your sites on Drupal 9 compatibility? Yes, that is definitely something that we did. Yeah, oh, funny. The pun intended. Great. Yeah. Yes, we took advantage of as many tools as we possibly could to catch stuff. I know that I can't remember what it's called, but I guess there's that auto bot in the issue queue that will also run tests for you to see, what deprecated code you might have and some things like that. So yes, definitely take advantage of those tools because it was very, very helpful. Actually made the process fairly easy. Now, I mean, luckily our module did not have a ton of deprecated code or any issues that we really needed to clean up specifically for Drupal 9. But yeah, the tools were a huge help there. How complicated was it to get the security team's approval? So technically we haven't gotten approval yet. We have applied. We did get a response from the security team. There was a PRR review that was done. We basically had a couple of issues we needed to clean up. There were a few false flags. We've addressed all of that, and we're pretty much just waiting for a response. So we do believe we are very, very close to getting security coverage, which means we'll have a stable release out for the module. So any other questions that we can answer? I hope I answered everything that's there so far pretty well, or at least a satisfactory answer. Oh yeah, somebody in the channel said it's the project update bot. So thank you, appreciate that. Yeah, so I guess we're technically a couple of minutes over. And I see somebody in the chat also says that they're using it in the current project. So that we're happy to hear that. And yeah, as always, I guess if you ever encounter any problems, like please hit up the issue queue. We will help if we can. And as I mentioned before, I am on Drupal Slack at the Modular Lab. I can actually type that in the chat just as a reminder, although I guess it's up on the screen as well. But yeah, you know, you can always feel free to hit me up on Drupal Slack. I don't know how much support I can necessarily provide there, but you know, if you hit me up, I will try to respond back at some point and get back to you. But yeah, the issue queue is probably your best spot, just because, like I've mentioned before, we've got we've got several people that are working on the project at our organization, and so might not just be me there to help out. But yeah, I guess we'll wrap it up. I'll stop talking. But yeah, please, if you're interested in continuing any kind of conversation with us, or just having a conversation with our company in general, please head over to the Bounteous booth in the expo. Thank you, everyone. We really appreciate you attending today. This was awesome. Thanks.